Sorry, I was trying to start my video. I will turn my video off though, because I have been having some computer issues. So the rest of the LOD team knows if I happen to disappear, they're supposed to start, I don't know, tap dancing or entertaining in some manner. Jesse Buxton is also here helping out. Once I start with the slide set though, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video. I want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. I did send to about 40 people last night, I think, who had registered to attend today, had not upgraded their Qualtrics accounts yet. So that was going to be my first announcement and disclaimer before I start the slide set is we're kind of targeting some more advanced users of Qualtrics today. If that's not you, feel free to stay on the call, but just hang on. You can type your questions in the chat box. The LOD team is going to keep an eye on those and let me know if anybody has any questions that I need to stop and answer. And or they're going to answer them themselves in the chat box. Okay, with that, can you see my slide set okay? I see a couple of heads nodding, so that's good. And you don't see the presenter view, right? You see the actual slides. Okay,
yep,
cool.
looks good.
Thank you. So we're going to have a brief overview here, including we're going to give you a few reminders about using Qualtrics and NelNet for payment. We're going to talk about some methods to register multiple participants, because again, this is kind of building on the previous training that we held back in the fall. How do you register for multiple events in a series, and then some methods to calculate payment using Qualtrics. I'm also going to share some other resources with you for Qualtrics training, and these include videos that we've done in the past. So first up, a few reminders, and I might call on Jesse and or Amy Komacher to talk about these as well. But I just wanted to remind you that if you are an Ohio State employee or your audience members are Ohio State employees, you cannot use a P card on the NelNet website. So make sure that you are, if you're an Ohio State employee and you're wanting to attend a webinar that's being advertised, that you pay with your own personal credit card, and then do not expect to get a reimbursement for that. Jesse, do you want to talk any more about that?
Yeah, I'll just mention that. So in general, if our audience includes OSU employees, we should be offering some option for collecting their work tag information for an internal transfer of funds of some sort. So, so if you do have either a mixed audience of external to OSU and internal OSU employees, or if it's all internal, we want to be sure to offer that option for an internal payment process and not just the credit card payment.
And I do have an example of internal payment in a little bit. All right, so the second bullet point up there is this process can't be used for payment for Scarlet Canvas courses. And I put Amy Komacher's name up there as a contact for questions about how to use CyberSource to pay for Scarlet Canvas courses. Amy, do you want to clarify anything or talk about that at all?
Sure. So Canvas courses run through what's called the catalog, and the most streamlined user experience with catalog is using CyberSource. So if you happen to be one of the individuals who set up something else ahead of this, we can still make it work, but it is ideal to use CyberSource for Scarlet Canvas courses. And like Debbie said, email me with additional questions.
Okay, and the last one reminder here is don't forget about those digital accessibility exception requests. You need to have those accessibility exception requests submitted before you even start marketing your event. So keep that in mind. And if you have questions about how to do that, be sure to contact Eric Owens, our digital accessibility, forgot the last word. Coordinator, thank you, for the college. If you have any questions about exception requests. You may already have filed one successfully, and you can use that as a template for future ones, but I just wanted to make sure that you keep in mind that we need to have those exception requests filed, and then also an exception asking about if they need accessibility accommodations on your survey, on your registration survey. So questions about that so far?
There's a question in the chat box from Laura.
Thank you.
It says, what reasons would you need to file an exception request?
If you are doing an online webinar of any kind, you should have an exception request on file. Because if someone needs, for example, live closed captioning or translation of any kind, they need to be able to submit that request to you and tell you that they need some additional accommodation. And if you don't have that exception request on file with the university, then we can get into some trouble. Amy, do you want to highlight anything more about that? Because I know you've been kind of our resident expert in the LOD unit anyway.
Yeah, basically, just if you don't already have a live captioning vendor lined up in advance, regardless of accommodation request, you need an exception request. And it's also best to just intend to file one in case someone were to ask for a sign language translator or some other accommodation we don't typically think of.
All right. So there are several different ways to register multiple participants within Qualtrics. Two of them are the most common used would be a file upload question where one person is registering multiple people and you ask them for an Excel file that contains the contact information for the people, all of the people that they're registering. So it would include their first name, their last name, their email address as a for example. Another way is to use the loop and merge feature in Qualtrics. And this would be based on, you would set up a question that would ask them, how many people do you need to register for this event? And then they would type a number in. And then one person would fill out basically a different web form for each registrant that they said they needed. So if they said they needed needed to register 5 people, then 5 registration forms would pop up where they would enter the contact information, first name, last name, email address. So this is not recommended for large group registrations. I would say stick, if you want to use the loop and merge, stick to 10 people or less so that the person who is registering all those other people doesn't have to do a whole lot of typing in of information. Another request that we had was, how do we register for multiple events in a series? So I have a webinar series of 5 different events coming up, and they can choose to attend all 5, or maybe they only want to attend, 2 out of the 5. So I'm going to show you how to set that up. This one will require you to have some special embedded data fields that you'll set up in the survey flow on the survey. So that you can have a count basically of how many sessions were selected for that person who's registering. And then the embedded data field you'll also set up a math function, which is what I'm getting to next. So there's different ways to calculate payments using Qualtrics. The first one is the easy one, and it's called recode values, where you're making a single selection, and it's basically one price for each selection. So maybe you have a registration where it's $50 for an adult to attend, but maybe it's $15 for a student to attend. So you have two different prices, but they're basically one price for each type of selection, because a person is either going to register for, as an adult, or they're going to register as a youth. So that's one. And I went back and reviewed my video that I did, the training that I did back in the fall. And I noticed that I left off I failed to show you guys where to put that recode value. So I'm going to make sure I do that today, so you can see where that lives in a Qualtrics question. The second way to calculate payment is using math operations and syntax in Qualtrics. And this all takes place within the survey flow. You would use this if you need to calculate a total. For example, one of the things I'm going to show you today is the vegetable trial that's happening across the state of Ohio, where they could select different seeds or vegetables that they wanted to participate in the trial. They could select multiple, and then there was a flat $8 shipping rate. So they could select multiple items, but then there was also an $8 shipping fee that was added on top of that. So we had to do some math to get that to calculate. Most of the time, you're going to be creating embedded data fields within the survey flow to do this. And it might be based on account, or it might be based on a different embedded field that you already created. For example, the most common types of embedded data fields that we create are, for example, NelNet price, because we know that to pass through information to the NelNet website, that information needs to be in pennies. So that $50 registration fee is going to look like 5,000 pennies. And then another one we have is total cost, which would be in dollars. And I like to set up an embedded data field for total cost in some cases, because I use those embedded data fields as piped text into survey questions. So for example, I can show a person that they owe $50 instead of 5,000, because most people, if they see 5,000, they're going to think it's $5,000 and not 5,000 pennies, of course. So I like to have those both set up as embedded data fields, where it's shown in pennies and shown in dollars. Sorry about that. Okay, so here were the other trainings that I wanted to highlight, especially if you aren't feeling very familiar with Qualtrics. First of all, I want to plug our LOD YouTube channel. Make sure you visit the LOD YouTube channel, and you can get to that channel also by visiting the LOD website, which is extension.osu.edu/LOD. It's down in the bottom right-hand corner of my slide. You can see the URL for our website. But once you visit that LOD YouTube channel, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel so you can see whenever we post videos there. So click on the little notification bell so you're notified when we post videos. So there are all the ACell2 extension videos are posted there. We have the videos from the support staff conference in the fall, all of the series that we did last spring. Those are all videos that are posted on that LOD YouTube channel. The intro to Qualtrics training that's highlighted there on the second bullet point is one that I did 2 years ago now in February, but it's still relevant. It's a basic, how do you use Qualtrics? And then there's the Qualtrics NelNet 101 training that we had at the support staff conference in the fall. So I just created a couple Go links to get to those more quickly if you're interested in those. And then I'm going to go ahead and move to. Thanks, T, for putting the information in there about the accessibility. Okay. Hold please while I do a new share. I'm going to go ahead and do a share of my screen, my monitor, instead of, there we go. All right, so these are the examples of the different survey types that I wanted to show you so that you can learn how to do this for your own registration purposes. So that first one was, remember, I wanted to show you how to do the basic redirect for the recode values. So I'm going to, show you this one here. Okay, so this was one. This is a survey asking for registration for the virtual walkthrough for tri-state fertilizer recommendations by Eric and Ed. So you'll see here, this is asking which session they would like to attend. And this one had a single price. Sorry, this one had a single price. So they didn't actually use a recode value for this one. We set it up so that in the survey flow, it just had a single price. And this is another way you can do this. So the amount was the setup for this question 44, the choice description, and it was number 4. So the other thing I wanted to show you with this virtual walkthrough okay, this is where the recode value, I wanted to show you how to set up the recode value. So this class was $15, all right? So we have this session they want to attend. They could select whether they wanted to do the morning session or the evening session. So to make this set up so that the pass-through value is $15, I would just click on this little code here, set up recode values, and then click on the recode values button. And then no matter what session they select, it's $15. So we would just have that set up like that, and we would set up the recode values for 1,500. And then once the NelNet thing gets passed through, it's going to show up as a $15 charge. The next one I wanted to show you was the file upload. And that would be the this one here. Okay, so for this one, we had a situation where we would have a possibility of one person at a bank registering a lot of people. So there might be 35 people that this, one person, let's say in the HR unit of a bank, would have to register all people. So we set up this question so that we asked, including yourself, how many people do plan to attend. And if they put more than one, then they would see an additional question. So this question would appear if they had selected or typed in a 1 or greater. So you can see the display logic that we attached to this question, where it says greater than 1, then they would be asked to upload a file. So if I do the preview for this survey, again, we had to make sure that since this is technically a non-accessible question type, If they have an issue uploading an Excel file, to please contact Deb Walters in this case. So you would just say, you know, give a person's name to contact if they have some issues uploading. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick preview of this one. So again, this first question is usually, hey, what are you registering for? Can't type today, apparently. And this one we had to do a company name. And then there's that question, including yourself, how many people do you want to register? So I'm going to say, you know, I've got 30 people to register. And then I'm going to click on the next. And then this would ask me to upload a file containing those 30 people for Bank ABC, because that's the name that I put on there. So this is where I would be able to drag and drop. And then you can see that this is a survey that's doing some math. And so I'll show you those calculations. So basically it's taking that 30 times, I can't remember how much this one was, $25 maybe. Anyway, and multiplying that, and then it's telling me how much I'm going to owe. So I'm going to go ahead and just click through this one so you can see what the redirect looks like. So I'm going to select debit or credit card. And then I'm going to say I'm going to pay for this using for the Ag Lender Seminar $750. If I wanted to change the way I wanted to pay, I could just select this one and then reselect a different option. When I click on the submit button, because we've set up that URL to redirect, it passes through the information, even the stuff I typed in correctly, passes through all that information onto the NelNet website. So for this particular one, we had it set up to go to Defiance County. And this is for Ag Lender Seminar, $750. Number of registrants was 30. And the payment amount was $750. This particular one did not ask for an address. You can ask for an address. If you don't have anything physical that you need to ship to your participants beforehand, then I would not ask for that address on the Qualtrics survey. Just let them fill out the billing address information when they get to here, because you want to make sure they're putting their billing address information on this survey. And then it has that phone number that I passed through as well. So let me just show you, this was one that was kind of more of a simple math problem that we did. And the math problems live in the survey flow. So click on survey flow. And these are the two that I have embedded in here. So I set up embedded data, and just like this, you type in what your embedded data field is going to be. And then I'm just gonna pretend that I'm doing this. And then you go ahead and fill out the set value now. So for this one, we're gonna create embedded data. And we want this to be based on this, how many people did you type in that question that asks how many people. So I'm going to do insert pipe text. This is based on a question. Including yourself, how many people. And then I'm going to click out of here so I can read what's in that box. So this is just telling us this is the question that's there. So now we need to apply some math to this. So I'm going to say that this is going to be an embedded data field, and the code for that would be leave that dollar symbol and then type an E. And then we want to do an operation where it takes this number of people that I typed into that question and it multiplies it by 25. So that would be an asterisk 25. And then close that curly bracket. So this is setting up that NelNet or the total cost so that it would show how much they owe. And then to make sure that NelNet knows how much to charge the credit card, we just are going to take this embedded data field and multiply that by 2,500. Or we can just do the same thing. So we would set up another embedded data field called NelNet price. In this particular example, I just did the exact same thing, except I multiplied it by 2,500. Sometimes if it's got some other math going on, I might take the total cost and, multiply it by 100. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this one so we don't mess it up. Okay. All right, and then this is where we are going to put that, the redirect URL. So I'm going to show you that real quick. So this is all the components of what goes into that URL. And I'm going to actually show you this on a different survey because this one is still kind of messy. But that is where you're going to generate that URL, and then you're going to paste that into your survey flow. You're going to set it up so that if a person selects the I want to pay by debit or credit card, then you're going to put an end of survey redirect to be customized to do a redirect URL. So you would click on the override survey options and then redirect URL and then paste that URL in there. Okay, so this was an example of how to do a file upload for multiple people. So to do the loop and merge option, this is kind of a more advanced loop and merge, and this was one that was not collecting a payment. I just wanted to show you the process that if you want to do a loop and merge, you can get very detailed on that in the way you would set that up. For example, this is the question that the loop and merge is based on. So how many clothing, food, nutrition, how many projects do you want to sign up for judging? Then you type a number in there. And then for each of those, you would see, based on how many you put in this field here, you would see multiple different questions. So this one would say, if you had selected, a clothing project, then you would see the different projects that would appear for clothing. And then they could select that project, and then they could select if they have any food and nutrition projects. So this was a very elaborate way to set up a loop and merge. I want to show you a more simple version of a loop and merge, where it's a basic form. And this is actually our future evaluation order form, which is based on a loop and merge. So we have, how many other instructors do you want to or will be teaching at this event with you? So they could put a number in here, as long as it was, I think 5 or less is what we have this set up as. And whatever number they put in there, they would see this many fields up here. So they would fill this information out. So first name, last name, email address for each loop and merge that they saw. So you would just set up an additional block, put your questions that you want answered for each additional item, and then set up the block options for loop and merge. So if I click over here, I can show you what those are. For this example, we had our first person added would be instructor B. The second one would be instructor C, instructor D, and instructor E. So you can just set that up using that loop and merge. One of the other things I wanted to show you before we get more into math is how do you get help in Qualtrics? Because sometimes that can be helpful. You'll see I have some math operations open up here. So to access help in Qualtrics, make sure you click on the little help up here. And then most of the time, it might not recognize that you're logged in. So I click on the support site. If I don't want to talk to a person, like if I want to go and search their information on how to get help, or if I want to talk to a person, I would do the contact support. So if I do support site, it might ask you to log in, but it might not, especially since I'm going to the site instead of trying to contact a person. So I'm going to come over here and say, I want help with the survey platform. And then what can we help you with? I'm going to type in loop and merge. So this is the best way I've found to get help. If you don't want to talk to an actual person. If you have tried to look at the support site and it's still not working for you, then I would recommend going ahead and using the contact support. But you can learn a lot about how to use the different features within Qualtrics by using this help. So the other way to contact is to use the contact support. And here's what I wanted to show you. So you have this thing that pops up, and your inclination is to just type your username and password up here, because that's what you would normally do when you're prompted with a username and password. What I want to show you here is make sure you click on this sign in with SSO. This is very important. This is so you can access contact the support people with by either phone, email, or chat. This is how you do this. So you sign in with SSO. For organization ID, you just type in OSU and you click on continue. And then if it didn't recognize me, like I'm already logged in, so it recognizes me, it would have asked me for my username and password. So here I'm going to probably skip over most of these, and I'm going to say I have a different support request. And then I have a question about the survey platform. And then you can pick your poison here. I've had great success with all three of these. If someone is around and available, this chat option is a nice option if you just have a really quick question that you need resolved. I typically either stick with the phone or the chat. The email, I haven't really tried out very often because I'm usually in a situation where I need to get something resolved right away. And they're really good about calling you back and walking you through the process. And then they will show you how to share your account so that that person can help you out and figure out your issue. I just wanted to make sure I showed you how to do that. Okay, so I've showed you how to do the register multiple people using both the file upload method and the loop and merge method. Now I'm going to show you that whole, there's a multiple series that I could sign up for if I wanted to. So I have the option to sign up for multiple items within a series. So I'm going to show you this Midwest Women in Ag. And if any of the people are on here that have helped, like Heather, are you out there? Gigi? I just wanted to be able to show this to you. So this is one where they ask for contact information, but then this was a series of 4. So originally they had this question set up as a multiple choice question type, but they only had a single answer here, even though it said select all 3 sessions if you want to, or all 4 sessions if you want to. So make sure you have your answers over here to be a multiple answer. And then they can indeed, this changes this to little squares. So that means it's a checklist. And I can select multiple items off of there. They had some additional questions like how do you know, tell us a little bit about your farm experience. This is the accommodation question on here. They also had a question, which county do you live in? If you don't live in Ohio, then where do you live? Because this was, again, for multiple states. Then this is the payment options, etc. So this one we had set up, so if I was an Ohio State employee, then I can go ahead and fill out that work tag information that Jesse was alluding to earlier. So we do have these options. It would just take a little bit more doing on your part to get those payment transfers. I don't know what we're calling those in Workday, but to get those put through the process. So if they were an Ohio State employee, they could just click here and they would select that on this question here, and then they would be prompted to add their information, their Workday information. So if I was just the average Joe coming to this, then I would click on this debit or credit card online, because that was the only method of payment that they wanted to select or to offer to people. You can also offer the check option. You can offer the invoice option. If you, for example, have the multiple, you know, paying for 35 people and they want, they need an invoice for their business. So you can see here, I used pipe text, and some of these might look familiar. So I used the embedded data field to carry forward for total cost. And this one we used a selected choices count. So it went to this one question and it counts how many of these sessions they selected. So let me just show you that real quick. Thanks, Jesse, for putting that in the chat. I appreciate it. Just tell me to, just interrupt me too if you want to say something else. Okay. So this one, the NelNet price was based on a count of, again, that question. So I'm going to just pretend to add this embedded data field and show you the process of how I did that. Because this one is a little bit different than just selecting a question. So I'm going to call this my NelNet price. I'm going to just say 2 so it doesn't get confused. I'm going to say set value now. And again, I want this to be based on this question where they've been able to select which sessions they want to attend. So I'm going to go to insert pipe text survey question. Please select the session or sessions you would like to attend. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick selected choices. Now, historically, in the older version of Qualtrics, there was another option to do the selected choices count, but they've taken that away. So you have to know how to do this code. This is one of the things that I look up help for on that Qualtrics help site. So we've got our question here. We know it's question 12. It says selected choices, but we want to get to a count of those selected choices. So I'm going to go ahead and call this an embedded data field again. So I'm going to put that E symbol in there, and that's just telling Qualtrics this is an embedded data field, and it's based on this question, Q12. And instead of having this choice group in here, I'm going to take that out because I know that's the syntax that that Qualtrics is expecting, because I've looked it up in the Qualtrics help site. So selected choices, I'm going to add the word count with a capital C. And then I know that this is going to be $10 for each session that they select. So for $10, we do 1,000 pennies. And then that is calculating what that NelNet price is going to be, because it's multiplying how many sessions they've selected by the amount of money that we're charging them. And then this is one of the examples where for the total cost, I just took the embedded data field. This is another math operation. I took the embedded data field and I said, okay, I want this embedded data field to be divided by 100 to give me what the total cost is going to be. And again, that's so that it displays on the screen for the user as a dollar value instead of a value in pennies. Questions? I know I'm probably like overwhelming 90% of you. And T has disappeared. What?
I don't see any questions in the chat box, so you're good to go.
Probably because they don't know what to ask. I'm sorry. Just stick with me here, and we're here to support you. If you've got questions, then just let us know, and we will get back to you. This is one of the ones that I can. This is one of the surveys that I can show you that URL redirect. So scrolling down here, trying not to make you guys sick. I've been scrolling a lot, I realize.
So I do have a question, Debbie, now. They asked, are you able to share these templates?
Yes, I'm going to create some generic ones based on these that I'm showing you today, because you clearly don't want to like spend all that time to get rid of all the personal information from somebody else's survey. So I'm going to make it so that they're more generic, and that can be shared. So this is the question that I've added, and that it's only this question is only viewable by the person who is setting up the survey. And the way I got that to happen was by using display logic. So this is a display logic that's not used all the time, but it's a really fast way to make this so that it's hidden by everybody. So this is only going to display, this question will only display, and you select in this first drop down, this true false option, and you just say false. That way, this question is never going to display for the user, the person who is registering for your event. They're never going to see this ugly table that you've used to create this really nice pass-through with the URL redirect. So for this particular one, this table is set up so that it directs you what is needed by the NelNet field. So on the field, on the NelNet form, show us what the amount, the payment amount is going to be. What question is that based on? You have a place to make additional comments. You have a place to put your items and services. Before that popped away real quick. So you just follow the prompts that are here in this column A and column B. You can basically ignore column B, but the amount to be charged. So in this example, we have set up a math problem. So I'm just going to delete that out of there so I can show you how I did this. So to fill this column, this third column out, we're going to use the pipe text feature in Qualtrics. So I'm going to click on this little A symbol up here with the curly brackets around it. That's our pipe text. And we want to set this up based on an embedded data field. So the process is to go ahead and set up those embedded data fields before I get to this table. Because if I don't, then I'm not going to have these embedded data fields in my survey. So I'm going to put NelNet price. So I'm selecting the embedded data field, and I clicked on this little drop down right here, and I'm selecting NelNet price. And the only reason that's appearing is because I've already set it up in my survey flow. So I'm going to click on insert. This second row down, you do not change. You do not do anything with that field. It's needed because that is what's telling that's what's telling the NelNet website, this is this person and this is how they responded to all of these questions. So for this one, I'm going to look for the first name. So I'm going to use the question that we asked for contact information for this one. So again, I'm going to click on the insert pipe text. I'm going to go to the survey question for this one. Provide your contact information. I'm looking for the first name. Going to click that. Same process here. This is for the last name. Now for this one, items and services, we didn't really have a question on the survey where it said Midwest Women in Agriculture and in Agriculture Educational Series. That wasn't set up. So for items and services, we can type in text that will be passed through using that URL to the NelNet website. So that's what we did in this case. For this next one, we wanted for additional comments to show up as, that count that we did in the math operation problem a minute ago in survey flow. So this is question 12, selected choices count, and this would be at $10 each. Now I have learned that Qualtrics does not like certain symbols to be in the, or NelNet, it does not like certain symbols to be in that URL, or I guess it would be the internet. And you can't use an ampersand, and you cannot use a plus symbol. I think were the two that I have found that you can't use. So make sure you test if you're going to put additional text in here that's not based on embedded or pipe text from the survey. Make sure you test those out before you go ahead and create, well, after you create your URL, test it out to make sure it's behaving properly. And then this one did not ask for address, it just asked for the phone number. So again, I used that macro file that I built in Excel to help you build those URLs, which again will be posted. I think we've decided to put those on the operations site. And then I generate that URL and I copy and paste the resulting URL into the survey flow again. So I think somebody asked that question a minute ago. So to set up that redirect, so you do survey flow, and we're going to pretend that this is not here. So this is the way you have to do it. So you want to do a branch type of flow. And you need to do that branch below the payment block or wherever that question is where you asked how they want to pay. So I'm going to just click down here where it says add new element. So if you're working from a brand new survey, you're creating your own survey, this is the process that you would follow. So I'm going to click on add new element here. This is going to be a branching element that I have to set up first. So I need to set up a condition for this branch. So I'm going to just click on this little add a condition. I'm going to base this branch on the question where we're asking, how do you want to pay? Which is here. And then debit or credit card is selected. Okay. I'm going to say okay. And then I'm going to have this option down here to add an element below this branching element. Okay, so I click on add new element here. This is going to be an end of survey element that we need now. So we're going to come over here to customize the end of survey. We're going to click on this override survey options. So survey options are back in the survey where it's the same window where you can select like turn on your back button for the survey. It's where you can set up a customized end of survey message if you want to. So it's all those survey options that you can set up for the survey. But in this case, we want to do this redirect URL. And then we want it to go to the URL that we've created. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to do Control V on my keyboard because I have it in my buffer. And then I'm going to click on OK. And then you can see that this is basically the same thing that's up here. Okay, so that's how you go and set up the that redirect URL. And I think Kim Rutherford, you were asking about that.
Hey, Debbie,
Yes.
can you go back to the table where
Yes.
you were before and let us see that one more time?
Of course.
So Debbie, we are in a question format, not in survey flow.
Correct. This is in the
Okay.
question. And I created this question to help you build that URL. So this is going to be in, you're going to use the macro file that I created to help with this. So let me
Yeah,
just
that was a little bit confusing as we switched
Yeah,
from
sorry.
that over to, no. Wait, just had a quick question about that, but yeah, so it's being built within a question.
Yes. And this is for this particular survey, so I'll just go ahead and open this one. Okay, so this is the macro file that I built. So what we did was, what you will do is go from your question. So you have this table that you filled out, you've taken the time, you've clicked on the table, say rich content editor, so you can edit the fields in this column, this third column here. So then I'm selecting everything in that third column. I'm doing Control-C on my keyboard. You can do right click and copy. I'm just a keyboard person. And then you come over here to that macro file. You come up to this column C, cell C3. And I'm just going to do Control-V on my keyboard. And it's going to paste everything from that table. And then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to click on this little button that says, after filling out column C in the table above, click this button. And then this is going to generate the URL for me. So if I just, deleted that and clicked on this button, you can see that the file generates the URL for you. And then you're going to copy and paste this URL back into that survey flow. Oops, wrong button. And what I typically do is put the URL at the bottom of this question table so I can come back to it if I want to. And I typically just do this, click on the source code button here in Qualtrics for this question, this little piece of paper with the two bird mouths. And if you're familiar with doing your website at all, this button should look familiar to you. And now I'm going to see the HTML code, so it's going to get ugly. And then I'm going to come down here at the very bottom and I'm going to just paste this. And the reason I'm doing it this way instead of just doing a Control-V is because I don't want it to copy in that Excel. I don't want it to copy in the file, the cell from the Excel file. So then I would take this link and do the copy and then paste it into my survey flow.
So Debbie, in the templates, this table will be set up.
The table will be there, but it will be blank.
Okay.
So that you can use it, you can do your own questions. So you may have added a question. You may have, added something, your question numbers may be different based on, if you inserted any questions or something like that. So I can't make it so that the table is filled out completely with the correct, because I don't know if, copying a survey from the OSU Extension library, for example, I don't know if the question numbers are affected by that action. So it might renumber your questions once you copy it into your own account. So that's why I was going to leave this table empty, but put directions in here so that you guys know that, yes, that is what you're supposed to be doing with this.
Thank you.
So the one other math operation that I wanted to show you was the veggie trial one, where it's doing math based on, again, the number of sessions that were selected. But before I go to that survey, because that one's not one for a webinar, I just wanted to show you how to, like, if you want to add a question from the OSU Extension user, the library, you can do that on your survey. So once you have your survey set up. So for example, if I want to add some questions, so I want to add a question below this block here. You would click on import questions from. And I'm going to go ahead and select the OSU Extension library. I'm going to select the survey library. I went to participant registration because I know that recently I have changed and updated on this webinar template that lives in this library. I updated the accessibility question statement just this past week and added some additional notes this morning based on some work with Amy Comacher when she realized that she couldn't see the notes that I had added. So I added a question and hid it. So I'm gonna click here. So I want to just import a couple questions off of this. Okay, so this is the accessibility statement, the approved one that we need to be putting on our webinars. So I'm going to import that, and I'm going to also import this. Please update this second one so you can see what I've put on here. So I'm going to go ahead and import those two questions. So you can pick and choose. You can either import the entire survey, or you can just import questions off of a survey. So I'm going to import those two questions. So this is the accessibility question where you would be insert the contact information for the person in your office who is going to be that accessibility contact to set up any accommodations that are requested. And it's we have discovered that you need to ask it in this way. So the old way that I had it on the previous templates was where they can type in what their accessibility request or their accommodation request was. With this way, they have to like physically contact you to make that accommodation request. And then I've added this this question here, which I've noticed that when I import just the question, it did not import the display logic. So this is a question that I do not want to show on anybody's survey. So I'm going to go ahead and do this add display logic. And I'm going to do that true false thing that I showed you earlier. And now I know that this question is not going to show up for anybody. It's just a reminder. So I'll probably, knowing now that I can import that question individually, I'm going to go ahead and put a do not show this question on your survey. So this is just for our internal use. It points you to the accessibility website, and it shows you, like if you look at the instructions for the exception request, it will show you the form fields that you need to have ready to fill out. And we have heard that you need to be able to fill those fields out within a relatively short amount of time. We've heard of people getting timed out, including Eric himself, getting timed out of that exception request form. It is an online form. So make sure you have all of those fields ready to go. And again, if you have any questions about that, contact Eric Owens. It takes a lot less time to get a request through when you have talked to him and you know how to fill that form out. That's why this says if you have an accessibility request or an exception request form that's already been approved, you can use that as a template and just make a few tweaks. But otherwise, contact Eric if you have any questions about filling out that accessibility. Does that help answer the two questions about the macro file and that other table, right? So yes, this table will be in those templates.
And then Debbie, is there a branch made for like if you're asking for participants to pay by check or cash?
For this particular survey, no, there wasn't, but the one I'm going to show you next, there is. So let me switch to that other one. Okay, and again, this one is not for a webinar, but it was for something where they could pay either by check or credit card. And they had some math that we had to do. So let me show you the math first. So in survey flow, we have, they can select between cool season and warm season vegetables, and they can select a certain number, like there's like 5 vegetables, I think, in each group, like 5 cool season vegetables and 5 warm season vegetables. So 26 was the cool season vegetable question, and 27 was the warm season vegetable question. So this first one is just the trial count. So how many trials, how many seed packets do they want to sign up for? So this is a simple equation where it's taking the count from the cool season question and the count from the warm season question, it's adding them together. And that's an embedded data field. The second one is the NelNet price. We needed to determine the count of how many vegetable trials they wanted to participate in. Each one of those was $3. So we multiplied that count by the $3, which is 300 in NelNet speak. And then we added 800 pennies because there's an $8 flat shipping fee for the trial. So they could get up to those, 10 packets of seeds with an $8 shipping fee. And then the total cost was that NelNet price divided by 100 because the math was easier for me to do. And this question, I wanted to show you that the embedded data fields and the order of the embedded data fields did make a difference. Because the first time I set this up, we just had the NelNet price and the NelNet cost. And it wasn't doing the math correctly because I had trial count down here at the bottom of this list. So Qualtrics needs to set up this trial count first so that it has this number here. And then since that trial count is used in the second equation, it has to know what it is. So we had to change the order of these 3 items and put the trial count first. So Shalice, can you ask your question again?
So do you have to create, how you did a redirecting branch or how you created a branch to redirect people? Do you create that when you are asking participants for, cash payments or check payments?
Okay, so these are the trash. I'm going to empty the trash. Okay, so here I have the display logic set up for how they want to pay. So I think this is what you're asking. So they have the option to pay by credit card or by check with this one. All right. If they wanted to pay by credit card, then they're going to see this question. So we set up the display logic so that if the question, how would you like to pay for this, was credit card is selected, then they would see this first option. Okay. This, we use that embedded data field again. So this is telling them the amount due, and it's using that embedded data field we created called total cost. And then in parentheses, this tells them how many veggie trials they signed up for account. And it has the word trials in it at $3 each plus $8 shipping. This is where I discovered that the plus symbol doesn't work in a URL redirect. And then if they selected by check, they happen to, in the Athens County office, they happen to have set up a drop box for checks outside their office. That's a locked box, or I think it's like, it's drops into their office. I'm not sure exactly how it's set up, or they could mail that check. So if they selected check, they would see this question, where again, it's going to tell them how much they owe. So it's going to tell them, make your check out to the Ohio State University and how much it's going to be made out for. And then it tells them how they need to submit that check process, or, submit that check for processing. And then for her email triggers, she just has a separate email trigger. And we talked about email triggers in that first, the Qualtrics NelNet 101, and how to set up your email triggers. So in general, you'll set up one email trigger for that credit card payment and one email trigger for the check payment. And I'll just show you those. Remember, our email triggers are located under Tools, Triggers, Email Triggers. And then this one has the two, and I've deleted the other one because this is a copy that I put in my own account. So, but you can see here, we set this up. So if they have selected, this should be set up for, credit card. I think this is for the credit card version. Yes, is selected. Okay, so you can set up a condition. So I'll show you that again. So when you're first setting up an email trigger, you'll have this option here at the top to add a condition. This is going to be based on the question, how would you like to pay? Credit card is selected. And then you'll set up the to email address will be to the person who is filling out the survey. So for this one, we've collected the contact information. So to get that embedded data field, I'm going to come down here into the body of the email. I'm going to click on that piped text character in the menu. On the survey question where they asked for contact information, email address was asked for. So this is who is going to get this confirmation email. So I'm going to cut and paste that up here into the to email address. And I just did a boo-boo, because I hit my C instead of my, my V on my keyboard. There we go. So now this is going to go to whoever has filled out this survey and provided that email contact. The from name could be OSU Extension, Athens County, whatever you want to put the from name. You can have the reply to email address. I would go ahead and fill that in because the default is a no reply Qualtrics email address. And we really want them, if they're going to click on reply to this email, we want it to come to one of us and not go to, well, not me, but you in your county. You want it to go to a specific person instead of a generic no reply. So this one is piping the first name that the person filled out on this survey. It's reminding them, it's telling, thank you for choosing the veggie trials. And if this was for a webinar, you would be doing things like mark your calendar and give them the dates they're going to mark their calendar for. Please remember your payment is not complete until you've completed that payment on the QuickPay site. They're going to receive a confirmation email from QuickPay telling them that they have completed that payment. You would also tell them for a webinar version when they will be getting the Zoom link, for example, and who will be sending that Zoom link. And then a summary of your choices is below. This is when we click on that include response report and then show full question text so they know what they responded to. And then this one was signed by the support staff person. And then I'm going to click on finish editing. This will take me to the next email trigger. And then this one is for the check payment. So I'll just show you the basic one for here, this one. Again, it puts the what they registered for or what they're signing up for. It has the reminder of when the deadline was. Again, tells them who to make the check out to and how much to make the check out for using that embedded data field that we created in the survey flow. remember, and it tells them how to drop off their check or mail it. And this one is set up, or should be set up for how would you like to pay, and check is selected. So this will only go to the person if they have selected to pay by check. And then in addition, Faye had set up some additional emails to go to her to give her a heads up, hey, look for a check in the Dropbox, or look for a check in the mail from such and such a person. So she basically copied this email trigger and made it go to herself so that she had it. So this would be a survey question, looking for the email address, because I don't want this email to come to me. I want this to go to the person who has completed this survey. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on Save Triggers. So you can set up multiple triggers using that method. All right, I'm participating in the veggie trials, so it's fun to see the back end. Yep, here's the back end of that survey that you saw. Yep. Do we have other like questions? So
If there's no more questions in the chat box, unless anybody has any other questions they want to ask in this moment.
it's always a good idea, once you have your survey set up, test it with multiple people. Don't publish that survey until you have tested it and made sure that the URL redirect is working correctly. That because it should be passing through the information from their survey. That's the whole purpose of that URL redirect, is so that they don't have to fill out that NelNet site again with the same exact information that they just put into your registration survey. Okay, so just make sure you test it. You can test it with fellow educators in your county, support staff. If you're stuck someplace and you can't get something to work, contact me. I can help you out. So,
hey Debbie, on that point about testing, if you are getting through your survey and you click on the submit and you're getting the redirect and the information looks fine on that front page of NelNet, you'll want to double check that the NelNet account that's listed at the top of that NelNet page is your county account. That should be part of the spreadsheet macro that you'll be doing. You'll choose your county name. There, Debbie's pulling it up there. In this case, this one was for Stark. That's going to be kind of the top part of that macro. You'll just choose that name out of the list. And for other non-county units that may be using this in the future, we will get those added based off of what the account name in NelNet is for you. For the counties, they were all set up very similarly with just the county name on the end, so that made it easy for us. But don't actually go all the way through the process of creating a payment when you're testing. You can go
right.
First NelNet page, go to the second page where you would submit credit card information. If somebody does accidentally, we can, quickly refund them very easily. That's not that big of a deal. But if you're sending this out to people to test, just kind of put that caveat out there to not go all the way through the process.
Yes, thank you. I did kind of skip over that in the demonstration. I showed the macro file back in October, but I didn't demonstrate that this time. So that is, I just have those 88 counties listed in here. As Jesse was just saying, there are some state units that have NelNet accounts, and if you're interested in getting one set up, I think A&R is one of our program areas that has a NelNet account set up, but if you're interested in getting one set up, contact Jesse, right, Jesse?
Yes, yeah, get a hold of me. But we already have one set up for all the county offices, so you're good to go there.
Okay. So are there any other questions? Those are great questions. All questions, great questions. I hope you guys, LOD team, I hope you've been keeping an eye on the chat box, because I really have not. Let me know if I missed anything.
I think everything's been answered so far.
They're looking forward to having those templates, Debbie.
Yes. Well, right after I get the triple ETs set up for 4-H volunteer conference for tomorrow, I'm going to work on these.
All right.
Debbie, do you want me to talk briefly about the NelNet URL Builder?
Oh, yes. I forgot I was going to ask you to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. I don't know if you want to like show them that.
Sure. Yeah, I've already got it pulled up here. So, so if there's an instance where you feel like the information that you need to gather for either if it's a registration or if it's a sale item, it could be soil test kits, that sort of thing, where the Qualtrics survey may be a little more in depth than what you need, but would still like the option to have some pre-filled information for the person making the payment through NelNet, so they don't have to worry about the amount that they have to pay, or you want to have the item services to be consistent for all the receipts that you get for that for your back-end reporting in NelNet. We have a custom URL builder that uses a very similar process to the pipe text in Qualtrics. So basically we have a simple template that I can set up for you. I've already set up, I think, 17 of these for counties that have asked for it. If you want this, just email me and I'll get you a copy of this file. But you can put in, if it's an order description, in this case, I'll just use the soil test kits for an example. You can do additional information for item services for yourself if necessary. You don't have to put something in there. Anything you leave blank will stay blank on the NelNet site. So obviously, unless you're sending this to a specific person, you can leave the first name, last name blank, additional comments blank. The amount, that's something that usually we want to have in there so that people don't make a mistake when they're making a payment. So say it's $25, you do have to put in the cents, 25.00. So at this point, if you have all the information in there that you want, and I'll just put some test things in here just to show you what shows up. So you hit the build URL button. And so it creates this URL that does look, very similar to that URL that we do on the redirect for Qualtrics. So you can copy and paste this into a hyperlink. You can create another Go URL off of this if it's something that's going to get used a lot. You can create as many of these custom links as you see fit. If you make a mistake, you'll just create a new one and not share the one that you had created before. But when you can click here to view it, I would suggest copying it first before you move on. But click here to pay online. And in this case, I did make a mistake. The account number for you will already be set up with your county account. So that account shouldn't be soil test kits. That would show up in the item services. But anyway, you can see here that this information comes straight through. So really all they would need to do is fill in their first name, last name, and click continue to make their payment. So nothing really pipes through into this second page for the actual payment process portion where they would enter their card information.
So Jesse, if you go back to the HTML builder, you should copy it. If you're wanting to build a generic one, they should copy that URL that's created before like entering first name, last name, right?
Correct, yeah.
Because if you enter first name and last name, then that's going to be passed through to that URL that you click on, that button that says build URL.
Right. So unless you're sending it to a specific person, to say you were invoicing someone for a service, for example, you could use this to create a one-off payment link specifically to that thing. If you're leaving it more general, but it's the same dollar amount for that item or service that you're selling, you can just put in the amount and the description, build your URL, and then have that linked from your website or an email or whatever.
And they can use this option that you're showing them. For example, if someone is coming to my office, standing at the counter and is purchasing something and they want to pay by credit card and our office doesn't have one of those, what are they called? Credit card terminal, right?
Yes. Yeah. So you can either direct them straight to the Go URL that's already set up for your individual county NelNet page. It's a quick URL. Or you could set this up for them and have it emailed to them, and they would just fill in their information to make the payment. So you have a few options there.
So Jesse, can you explain a little bit for Kim? Basically, I think what Jesse has been doing is based on requests that he's been getting, he'll set up a separate URL builder for each county who may have made the request. Is that correct?
Yes,
Jesse?
that's correct. So like in this case, are you seeing the one I have for Columbiana here now? Oops.
We were a second ago, but you stopped your share.
Here we go.
Or
Okay.
your share stopped, I should say.
So it'll be the Columbiana or whatever county NelNet builder. We'll have that right there on the top. So again, item services, we'll just do a test here. Amount $10 or $1. I click build URL, click here to make the payment. Then you'll see that the account is kind of grayed out, can't be changed. So this is showing the county account that payment's going to be going to.
So make sure if Jesse has shared this URL builder with you, that you don't go share it with another county, because then your county is going to get the money instead of that other person's county.
Specific to the county it's set up for, correct. Yeah, this could certainly work for camp payments, or Qualtrics would be another option depending on what other options are available with your camp registration, what other information you need to collect. But yes, the Qualtrics survey option for accepting camp registration payments in the future, I think would be really awesome. If you've got T-shirts that you're selling in addition, Debbie shared an example earlier where we can kind of have that added in. You'll get the information on the survey back end, and the Qualtrics will do all the math to tell people what their total amount due is.
Right. You could set up a camp registration survey as a basic survey, and then put in those payment questions, like how do you want to pay for this? Or do you want to order t-shirts? What's your t-shirt size? You can build that all into one survey. Then they're not having to fill it out in multiple places. And you don't have to keep track of multiple places and who's paid and who hasn't paid, et cetera, because the Qualtrics survey would have all of that information in there for you. So yeah, Jeff Dick, if you want to get working on a camp registration survey that we can add a NelNet thing to it, I'd be happy to help with that. If you guys could build the registration survey part.
Before May, right, Debbie?
And Jeff, you already have something like that in there. What'd you say, T?
I said before May or June. Right, we should do that.
Yeah,
Right.
sooner the better. Yeah, I'll check with Hannah, but that is excellent idea. This would really work well for that.
Jeff, this is Anna. We have stuff already set up. So you come to us if you need anything for the URL for camp registrations.
Woohoo!
Okay.
All right, any other questions? I can let you go 6 minutes early. I believe Shalice has been recording, so that's good. We'll have this posted up on I'm assuming the LOD YouTube channel and our website as soon as possible. We'll have to wait till the closed captioning comes back, or whatever that's called.
Yep. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.